Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm experimenting with a new software streaming tool and we'll kind of see how that goes. I'm a little bit worried that no one can hear me, but we'll find out in a second. How are you, Neil?
Not too bad, thank you, Az. Yeah, it's like when managers trial different formations in pre-season, isn't it? And different personnel. Tried a few different things out technology-wise today. It's guaranteed to go wrong.
It's exactly like that. I thought pre-season is a good time to test, but you know it might not be. Good sound, says Bis Rocco. So
fantastic! That was a problem for most of last year, wasn't it, with me?
I was going to give it 2 seconds just to make sure people can hear you. We kind of play on catch up a little bit, and as long as they can hear you, then we're good to go. Yep, I think we're fine. Right, cool. So we've had some prices, which is nice. We've had obviously the big ones. We've had Son and Kane coming in. We've had some interesting ones from Leicester as well, some cheapies, and then we've had some Bournemouth prices, which we're going to go straight into now. Because why start with the most exciting ones, Neil, when you can start with Bournemouth? Here they are on the screen. We've got Solanke coming in as 6 million forward, Travers the goalkeeper 4.5, and Zamora the 4.5. They were the three they led with. What's your thoughts on those?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, Bournemouth were the team I covered in our promoted series earlier this summer, so I know a little bit about them. I'm not going to profess to be an expert, but I did watch a hell of a lot of highlights from last season and read probably more articles on Bournemouth than I read on Newcastle in the last 12 months, which says something.
But don't you love FPL?
So, yeah. I love the fact that I must have spent about 2 days researching and writing those articles. It was 3 articles, each about 2,000 words in length. And really, with the pricing, and we don't really need anybody like Billing or Christie or Zamora because we've got such bargains from the big 6. So anyway, that was a wasted enterprise. But I can tell you a bit about Bournemouth. Solanke's obviously the headline grabber, I think. 6 million, that's $500,000 cheaper than Mitrovic. And you aren't getting many starting forwards for that elsewhere. I think Mateta and Edouard, we'll come on to those later, are 5.5 million, but they've got their own caveats with game time. Solanke is probably going to start every week, you would think. Parker absolutely loves him, and he's talked him up all season. I know we've seen him before when Bournemouth got relegated, and he was a bit of a laughing stock because I think he went 39 games without scoring.
He was poor. Every time I saw him, he was poor.
And it wasn't just a bad luck story. He didn't look the part. 2 years older now, of course, and coming into the league off the back of a 29-goal season that was easily forgotten about with Mitrovic, because Mitrovic broke a lot of records. I think he scored 43 last season in the Championship. Solanke scored 29, and that hasn't been beaten by many second-tier strikers in a long time. Tony did it last season, but beyond that, there hasn't been barely any in the last decade. So that's not an inconsiderable figure. My concern with Bournemouth is their manager, Scott Parker. And whereas Marco Silva's a big gun-ho, and I think we'll see a different Mitrovic this time, Parker is renowned for sort of tippy-tappy possession football. And we saw last time, I think Fulham broke a record under Parker for the least home goal scored in a season when they got relegated last time out. So I am...
Oh, this isn't my fault.
I'm mighty concerned about that. What's that?
You're cutting in and out, sorry.
Oh, no. Oh, dear. There we go. It starts already. I don't know how much of that you heard. Long story short, I've got reservations about Parker's mindset rather than the players themselves. I must admit, I'd be looking elsewhere. Anyone of note who's attacking-wise, we had hopes that they might get a cheeky 5 million for Billing, maybe. But anyone who's attacking midfield is 5.5 million, and that's probably too much, I think, based on what Bournemouth did last season. Billing it's not the Billing we've seen before at Huddersfield or Bournemouth, where he was more of a number 6. Now he's playing almost behind Solanke as a second striker, getting forward a lot from, much like Fernandes does at United, so ostensibly a central midfielder, but very much getting into that number 10 slot. Scored 10, assisted 10 last season. Obviously, there's the Championship tax to pay when you come up to the top flight. But 5.5 million, I think if he was 5, he would have been a nice sort of cheeky bargain 5th midfielder. But their fixtures are stinking as well to start. So my general thoughts are probably avoid a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
Solanke perhaps comes into the thinking when the fixtures ease, because he's going to start every game. He takes penalties. So he could get maybe double figures, 10 or 11 throughout the season. But that'll be it, I think.
I mean, it's a good point what you make about the defenders, because we sometimes look at kind of attacking defenders from promoted sides. You know, Ayling was really popular last season, for example, at 4.5, and you know, even players like, you know, Ben White, he was like the kind of, he's like a top player who's now 4.5. But there's so many now, isn't there? So many kind of players from good sides that the promoted defenders are just going to be completely ignored, and it's a bit of a shame. And then you look at some of the midfielders as well, and like players like, people complaining about Romeu, for example, moving up to 5 million. So the pricing's been a bit strange with some of these things. It'd be interesting to see the full list.
Yeah, they're trying to make you go. They're obviously, I can kind of appreciate what they're doing to an extent, because they're trying to open the game up a little bit. So they're going to make you consider more about premium goalkeepers. And we'll come on to Leicester later on, but as you alluded to there, the 4.5 million defender pool is no longer the sort of the home of rubbish defences. I mean, there's some mediocre ones there, but there's some genuinely sort of exciting attacking wing-backs / full-backs within that pool, as we'll discuss with Leicester. So as you say, why take the risk on a Zamora? He's got his own, he's quite offensive-minded, but and I do think Bournemouth are going to...
Freezing in some great poses, Neale. I have to say.
Anywhere near the defence with likes of Pereira at 4.5 million as well.
Oh, you're back. What's happened?
I've shut everything down.
I leave you for a few weeks. Everything's working perfectly, and now it's all gone tits up again.
I do not know what's happening. I'm in the usual place. I've got loads of tabs open. I do not know what's.
No, you're not too bad. It's just when you really get into a really key bit of analysis, that's when it just goes up, and it's really forget when you talk about doing like a Zoom, like a pretend Zoom freeze, like. What?
At least it's Bournemouth where I'm cutting it.
Exactly, yeah. At least it's Bournemouth. I mean, let's move over to the big one that was today, which was Spurs. Obviously, big kind of question marks around where Son was going to be classified, where Perisic was going to be classified as well. I say big talk about Son. You would never sway to say he was going to be anything other than a midfielder. What do you think about the 12 million price tag though for him? It's 0.5 more than Kane. It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It is. It's probably right based on his achievements last season. If you look at it, he was very, very close to getting to Salah's total. What was it? 33 attacking returns, something like that. 258 points. So really, based on that, he should be that price. But we've been so accustomed to having Son as a bit of a bargain premium. He's always been around about 10, 9.5, and was undervalued at that. Let's be honest. And now I think it's finally caught up with him. My instinct is that's probably too much initially, I think, given the fixtures. And Spurs fixtures aren't bad by any stretch. Certainly in the first 6 game weeks, there's maybe 2 or 3 captaincy candidates there. But the fact that Kane's a little bit cheaper, and you could feasibly swap between Kane and Haaland. I know it's dangerous to book a transfer in earlier on, but Kane at 11.5 million, the same as Haaland. You've got Kane in for, what was that, a game week 1 match against Southampton?
Yep.
While City are away at West Ham. And then you get in Haaland for Bournemouth at home. That would be my initial thought. I mean, I haven't put together a squad yet, but the thing with Son and Salah is that there are both cheaper alternatives at 8. And neither of them you could call sort of convincing coverage, because as good as Kulusevski did, and I think he's a better alternative than Diaz than Salah. He was still. I had an analysis of this. Kulusevski, since his full debut, which was in game week 26, he was the 4th highest scorer in the Premier League, which was really good for FPL points. But he was still about 50 points or so behind Son. So you're obviously sacrificing that. Not that I think Son will hit those heights necessarily straight away. But I think my first draft will be Sonless.
I think it has to be, right. I mean, there's no way you can fit in Salah, Haaland, and Son. as well. I think
No,
if,
can't.
if if it was, I mean, you got Son as well. I mean, there's more subs. He was getting subbed off early anyway.
Yeah.
Richarlison's come in
Mm-hmm.
now. I would probably
Yeah.
price Son below Kane. I mean, looking at the Fantasy Scout members area, so I've been showing off some of the comparison tools for kind of decisions like this. I think Kane and Son is obviously a big one, and that people are going to have. I mean, looking at the expected metrics for last season, Kane is superior to Son across a lot of the metrics. He's for XG, XG non-penalty, not a huge amount in it, but Kane is still superior. Expected assists, interestingly, Son's higher, but I mean the key ones like minutes per XGI, Kane's superior. So in general, in terms of expected goal involvement, Kane kind of underperformed and Son just massively over-delivered, which he always does, to be fair.
Yeah.
Son is consistently overperforming on these. But if that was a bit of a blip season for Kane, and that you could argue could be Son's absolute peak, I found it a bit strange that they've gone so high on Son and moved Kane down so much.
Well, they're very reactive, FPL. They're not really forward thinking. They never predict where a player's going to start. The positions, for example, are always based on what a player's done in the previous season, or mostly. So, for example, I'm trying to think of an example. Who's changed this season? Maximum's gone back to being a midfielder.
Jota up to forward.
Jota's going to be a forward, and that is all based on team sheets. So it's nothing to do with heat maps. It's nothing to do with penalty box touches or how close they get to, say, Son gets to Kane. It's all about, with FPL, rightly or wrongly, you might disagree with it, but their policy on positions is starting positions on a team sheet. And on the face of it, Son starts on the left, and obviously he doesn't play there. He gets central, he moves in and around Kane. But with Spurs is and with Son is that Kane, as you said there, had his worst start by a considerable margin. I think the first 17 game weeks, 1 goal and 1 assist. And if you look at his underlying stats last season, he's generally an overperform as well in terms of XG, and he struggled on that front.
His biggest problem was conversion. That was the biggest dip he had from all of his stats, which is strange.
Yeah. And obviously, he does take a high proportion of shots from distance, Kane, which affects that a bit, because he does sort of chance his arm from 25 yards now and again. But yeah, his numbers his conversion rate and his XG overperformance were down on what we usually expect for him. So you would think Kane would improve next season. And you've got the sideways move to Haaland, which you could do frequently. Whereas Son, you couldn't go Son and then go straight and then rectify your mistake and go Salah easily, because that's another million.
Yep. De Bruyne there.
Yeah, you got De Bruyne there, and you could argue the toss over De Bruyne is probably a more secure starter than Haaland, I would think, when the substitutions kick in the Champions League. So lots to be thought about, but my initial instinct is that unfortunately, and I love Son, he's one of my favourite FPL players of all time, is that he's probably edged a bit too pricey, but there'll be times when we definitely turn to him, even at that price.
Yeah, and no penalties as well, obviously, which Kane has. I mean, it's the same with De Bruyne. 12 million for a player with no penalties. You're expecting a lot from open play. I worry about Son's minutes more. Yeah, he'll be a factor for us, but I think there's not going to be. I mean, you can't build a team with 3 of them, so it's going to be people sacrificing one of Haaland or Salah to go with one of these Spurs players and probably making the switch in game 2, like you said. What about Perisic, though? Perisic coming in as a defender, 5.5 million. That's got to be one of the bargains of the season so far, isn't it?
On paper, it is.
On paper,
as soon as he signed, as soon as he signed, I thought, this is excellent. I can't wait to see him. I hope he's a defender. He is. I hope he's 5.5. He is. So that's great. And when he's on the pitch, I expect he'll do things, but unfortunately, he might not be on the pitch all that much. There's a great community article from Wilco. I can't remember his full moniker, but he did a piece on Conte at Inter, and it was how he handled his wing backs when he was in Italy in the season when Serie A clubs were allowed to use 5 substitutions. So that was interesting to read. And Perisic, I think, lasted 60 minutes or more in just half of his games. So he's not eligible for clean sheet points half the time he turns out. Now, the caveat to that is 32 appearances, only 20 were from the start. So I think he got taken off before 60 minutes in 4 of those 20, and the other 12 were substitute appearances. But then again, that has to be factored in too, because you still get points for substitute appearances in FPL. You don't get an auto sub in for that. You're going to get 1-pointers. So I'm increasingly turning off Spurs wing backs, because Conte was already quite prolific with his changes in that department last season. I think I did an article on this myself. So Sessegnon, Doherty, Reguilon and Emerson, they were substituted off on a combined 29 occasions in 55 appearances between them. So that's like a wing back substitution every game at least. And there weren't too many pre-60 minutes. I think there was about 7 in total. 4 were injury enforced. But Spurs now have got the addition of Champions League football as well. So that is, whereas last season they had a clean run of it in the run-in, and then they were playing Europa League football before that, second strings fielded in that competition. They're going to be putting out full strength teams in the Champions League, you would think. So you're going to see more minute management, more substitutions, more rotation between games from Conte, I think. And I've no doubt that when Perisic is on the pitch, he can really rack up the points. But he is going to be off the pitch quite a bit, I think, as well. And that was my increasing thought, is that I'll probably start the season without him.
You're a right party pooper, aren't you? I was really excited about Perisic, and now I'm all deflated and flat.
I am sorry. Yeah, that's my job. My job is to be the glass half full character, and give you reasons why not. I think I've probably only recommended about 2 players in my 4 years here in FPL. The other ones are like, well, you better be careful with this lad. Yeah.
I mean, is there anyone? So, any other Spurs players? I mean, Kulusevski's coming at 8. I think that's quite a lot, but did well last week.
He did. I mean, as I said, you can't really look to him as cover per se for Son, because Son was so far ahead of everyone else. But on his own right, 4th highest points total from game week 26 onwards is pretty decent. Richarlison at least isn't a direct competitor in terms of position. Richarlison's going to be left, or he's going to be through the middle. Relief for Kane and Son. Now Son, of course, could come over to the right, but 8 million's unfortunately 8 million doesn't guarantee you starts for most of the big clubs anyway. So you're going to get rotation with Foden at 8 million, maybe even Saka now. With Arsenal they've got Jesus in, who can play on the right. They were going in for Rafinha. I'm not sure if that'll materialise now. So I mean, you're going to have to expect, I think, not just for Spurs, not just with Kulusevski, quite a lot of rotation, because the schedule is very packed in between now and game week 16 when the World Cup starts. Most clubs are playing twice a week during that period, so maybe we place less emphasis on rotation risks than we usually would, because it is going to happen on a widespread basis. And Kulusevski's on the watch list. I'm not sure if I will start the season with him yet, but he'd be he's on a monitor list for me in pre-season. See how he does. Lloris is disappointing. That's 5.5.
Yeah, I thought with Mendy at 5, he'd come in at 5.
That would have been interested in that. They've got some players at 5. Doherty's one to watch if Spence doesn't come in. If they don't reinforce their options at right wing back. Could you swallow the rotation a bit more for 5 million than 5.5 of Perisic? At least Doherty's a bit younger than Perisic as well.
Yeah.
I think Perisic is 33, and that's going to count against him, you'd think. So, there's names I'm monitoring, but I don't think there's any Spurs players who are definitely in my team for game week 1, whereas there are other players elsewhere.
I think Spurs are the interesting one for game week 1, because I think they're the differential type players. I mean, they've got the really good game week 1 game, but there's almost risks of all. If you go for Kane, you're probably not going to have Haaland. If you go for Son, you're probably not going to have one of Salah or Haaland and not have an easy move to him. If you go for Kulusevski, you've got the rotation. There's kind of, they could all do well, but there is also caveats with them. So I'm expecting to see some teams with Spurs players in, but then there'll have to be sacrifices. And I wonder how many people actually take the risk and start with them. Let's talk about Leicester next. So Leicester have got some really interesting prices. I mean, let's talk about Maddison first. I mean, he's come in at 8, which is his most expensive he's been. Again, there's a lot of 8 million midfielders now. We've got, Bowen was a bit more, wasn't he, 8.5, but then you've got like Kulusevski, we've got Foden and Mahrez. Plenty of options around that kind of bracket. It's a bit too much. I love Maddison, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for him with poor fixtures to start.
It is. One good thing you got about Leicester is that they're not in Europe this year, so that's a benefit. We've seen them juggling. Not so much Vardy, who was always rested for Europe anyway in the first half of the season, but we did see Maddison and Barnes getting time in Europe last year a lot, and they won't have that now. And yes, I think there are a couple of midweek game weeks between 1 and 16, but mostly they'll have 7 days rest in between games, which is good, and that's what I like about Leicester this season. I do worry that they've kind of stagnated in terms of squad strength. They're not really reinforced much lately. Hopefully they'll go out and splash a bit of cash. But Maddison, I was writing this today in the live blog. He, in his final 23 appearances, he got 22 attacking returns, and not all of those appearances were from the start either. When he did start, 7.4 points per match. And that's 23 games. That's not a small sample size. That's 23 matches. That's pretty good. More than pretty good. As you see, the fixtures aren't great. I think they turned good from. They've got 2 decent home matches in 1 and 3, but then amongst that there's Arsenal, Chelsea, and United. I think from game week 6, it's decent-ish. Oh no, game week 8. Sorry. So they've got Forest at home. Then they play Bournemouth, Palace, Leeds, and Wolves. So
I mean, that's nice.
That would be what.
That's nice.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, and that takes you sort of through the autumn period. That's immediately after the international break, I think, as well. So that's if you are playing your wild card in game week 9. I know this is thinking far ahead, but that's the one and only international break between now and the World Cup. So there's only one, and that's between game weeks 8 and 9. And game week 9 is when Leicester's fixtures turn for the better. So you might see some wild cards played there. And that's when I'd be thinking about Leicester assets. And as you're about to discuss, I'm sure it won't just be Maddison.
Well, exactly. I mean, we'll come on to Barnes and Vardy in a second, but I mean, looking at the defenders coming in and even some of the forwards. I mean, Schmeichel's coming at 5, which is a kind of about right what we expected. But then you've got Fofana, Justin, and Ricardo. Who was 6 million a couple of seasons ago, all at 4.5. I mean, God, they've screamed to me. I mean, I'm debating 5 at the back, but you could go 5 at the back with one of them.
You could. I mean, if 4.5, if you're going to 4-4-2, which is what I might do at the season start with 4 premium defenders and have a 5th bargain one, then you've got Pereira to come in for what? Game weeks 1, 3, and possibly 6 if you needed him. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens in pre-season, whether he is a Neale prospect, because they've got Castagna as well. Let's not forget about him. And they've got obviously Justin, who's the same price. Justin might end up being the more nailed one.
Justin, I like the most, I think, because he's competing for the World Cup spot as well, isn't he? Like he's kind of right on the fringes, but he's a good enough player to break in with a good start.
He's a sort of destitute man's Reece James, and the fact that he can play as a right-sided centre half, and also as a wing back as well, or as an orthodox fullback. So he's got that versatility where he can make the.
I think Rodgers really likes him, really rates him. So he'll find somewhere to slot him in, I think.
Yeah. Pereira's got that sort of patchy injury record as well, where he's been in and out the side. Justin had that long-term one, but it was that could happen to anybody, that long-term injury. Whereas Pereira's getting them niggly little week-to-week muscle injuries. That would be me one caveat with Pereira. But it wasn't that long ago. I think on his debut season, 10 attacking returns, 10 clean sheets.
Yeah.
He was a star when he first arrived, so he is very much on my monitor list for game week 9 fixture turn. I mean, it doesn't make any sense because Christensen, who's Leeds' new fullback, who's got a reputation for goal scoring, he scored a lot, but it was in Austria, and he comes in at 5, and Leeds have got a pretty poor backline. I know Leicester. The thing with Leicester is they kept only 7 clean sheets last season, which was one of the worst tallies in the division. But they had so many injuries. Evans was out for a while. Fofana was out for ages. That's their 2 best centre halves. Justin was out for a long time. Again, one of their best fullbacks. Pereira kept going in and out. Ndidi was out for a long time. The shield in front of the back 4. So I think they'll improve a lot this season. I'm not expecting them to crack the top 7 necessarily again, but I think they'll improve on the clean sheet front.
Yep.
And it's good for Vardy as well. He gets a full week between games. About 9.5 million. Still scored 15 goals last season. Just 20 starts he made. So he's still doing it. And he's kind of at that. If you are going 3 premiums, he's kind of at that affordable third premium price. You know, 9.5.
Would you go from over like Jesus though?
Well, that's the thing. I think if the fixtures are right, and Vardy, who was traditionally a big six player, he's now a flat track bully. If you look at his data over the last 2 seasons, I would target him for smaller fixture runs. I think if cash isn't an option, which it doesn't seem to be at the moment, with some generous pricing for likes of Trent and Cancelo and James and Chilwell. So he might be affordable come game week 9, but we'll see.
Yep, because his kind of competition are reasonably priced as well. I mean, Daka's fallen to 6 million. Iheanacho's there at 6.5. I mean, Iheanacho, I always think he should be wanting to move. Disappointing last season after he was so good towards the back end of the season before, and then sort of barely trusted last season. I think I'm just desperate for him to sign for Brighton, even though I can't actually see it because he's better than us. But you've got to think, Vardy's getting on a bit. If he gets another injury or something like that, and we'll see one of Daka or Iheanacho really emerge. That's that kind of 6.5 slot sewn up, really, isn't it? Didn't see it last season, but could happen this year.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing was when Vardy got injured last season, they kind of shared a bit of game time between them, Daka and Iheanacho, because Rodgers likes his one up front, the 4-2-3-1. We did see for a while, I think it was it Daka in Europe and then Iheanacho in the Premier League or vice versa. I can't remember which way around it was. But your worry, even with Vardy injured, is that one of them's going to start and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
So I'd still probably steer clear of those two, even if Vardy gets injured.
Yep. And the final player I mentioned is Barnes. Did he start at 7 or was he 6.5?
He was 7 last season, and he stayed the same. I think that's right. Yeah. Again, decent end. 17 attacking returns from game week 11 onwards, and you only need 17 starts in that time. So the thing with him is
a frustrating game player to own. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
It's he's the sacrificial lamb whenever Rodgers changes shape. If they go 2 up top, they lose Barnes, they lose their width. Whereas Maddison can sort of fit between some different positions, depending on the formation. So yeah, I still prefer Maddison, even with the million extra.
Yep. Good. Okay, Palace. I don't have any fancy graphics for Palace. Did they do They didn't do a video, did they?
They didn't.
I was looking for it. I was like, that's weird. So all I've got is this really boring grey and white text on there. Guaita's coming at 4.5, so another kind of budget keeper for us. He had one of the best points per minutes of goalkeepers, along with Raya as well. So I think a lot of people are looking at Mendy at 5, but I still think there's value in a lot of these 4.5. Goalkeepers, defenders, again, all priced at 4.5. We got another 4 million in Tompkins, but not guessing he's gonna start for them. And then we've got some other bargains. I mean, look at Eze and Elise at 5.5. Some more good options.
Some generous pricing. I mean, for starters, you're not going to be anywhere near Palace assets, and probably until game week 9, maybe even beyond that. 10, I think it is actually. Because they've got, in the first 9 game weeks, they've got Arsenal, Liverpool, City, United, Chelsea, and then 4 kind of mid-table teams from last season. So Newcastle, who are improved, Villa spending big, Brentford and Brighton. So they don't meet any promoted club until game week 16, Palace. So they've got, their fixtures are poor. Now, I do like Palace, and I think I'll be looking at their defensive assets maybe when the fixtures improve, more as a 5th defender, I think, than a starter, because there's too much value in the premiums. But they did have a good record defensively last season. They were, I think, 5th for clean sheet, 6th for clean sheet, and 5th for best expected goals conceded. Yeah. So they are a solid defensive team, and the back 4 is probably going to be the same week in, week out. So Anderson's 4.5, Mitchell's 4.5. And they're sort of safe punts, albeit not offering any sort of attacking.
That's the issue, right? With so many defenders offering attacking potential at 4.5, even with like Pereira and Tomiyasu at 4.5, it's still going to be hard to justify a spot for a Palace defender.
It is a hard sell. Yeah, I mean you've got to think. I mean the thing is with the budget defenders is you still got to focus on the bread and butter. I think a lot of the time we forget about clean sheets. I think when we're looking at it's fair enough as premium defenders because they're getting so many that it's such a consideration. But really, when you're looking at 4.5 midfielders, and I know Pereira's there, but players you might target, like sort of a Dunk or something for they get 4 goals a season. That's like 1 every 9 or 10 game weeks. So really, the bulk of their points still come from clean sheets. And I do trust Palace's backline more than most of the mid-table teams. So they've got their merits. The problem with the goalkeeper is you're not quite sure if Johnson's going to be coming in and take over from Guaita. We'll see what happens there. And I wouldn't go anywhere near anyone further forward, to be honest, even though they are generously priced. It's just too much of a crapshoot with Vieira in terms of who's going to start. And next season, 5 subs, midweek game weeks, I'm not just going to not go anywhere near them, because as promising as some of those players are, and Elise definitely is, Eze looked good as well towards the end of last season. Mateta, when he strings together some starts, can grab a goal. But there's just too much, outside of Zaha, who is Neale, there's just too much minute risk. And what you need from players at that price is appearance points, if they need to be for all sub duties. And you kind of guarantee that.
Yep. Quite a few people in the chat asking how much Nathan Ferguson's going to be. up to 5 million, right?
yeah, based on his track record in the last 2 years, he should be 3.5. But I suspect they're going to it'll be 4.5, I think, because he is probably their first choice right back, or was intended to be their first choice right back, and has never started a game. But they've got Ward and Klein, who are they seem like makeshift options who become regulars because of Ferguson's injury record. I think that was the idea when he moved, that he would be taking over right back spot. So
can't wait to talk about it every week on Team News. I miss it.
Funny enough, Palace were in pre-season action on Saturday, and guess who wasn't involved?
No, really?
Yeah,
no, bless him. He doesn't exist. We go through this. He's just a myth of FPL. I remember we looked it up once, and he did actually play like 12 minutes in the league or something. And we were just like,
he did completely eluded my attention. Yeah. He was off again after that in the treatment room. Poor lad.
Yeah, I know. I do want to see, but I mean, all the reports are that he's a really good player, really talented, and so hopefully he can put the injuries behind him. Final team then, and that is Everton. Oh, one particularly interesting price here, and by interesting I mean disappointing price, which is Calvert-Lewin. I can't believe they've priced Calvert-Lewin at 8 million. I think that just, it's with all these fullbacks and wing backs and Trent at 7.5 and Cancelo and all the money going defence. You've surely got to make the strikers more attractive when they're struggling so much. And Bamford coming in at 7.5, Calvert-Lewin at 8. Yeah. It's a lot of money. No one's going to go there, are they?
I don't think so. I think even if you are going to go for a mid-price forward, then there's probably better ones out there than Calvert-Lewin. I think initially, there's you could argue Wilson maybe, Newcastle bolstering that the team, and they're going to be more attacking next season. Obviously Tony 7 million. They've got really good fixtures, Brentford, and then you've got Mitrovic at 6.5. So Calvert-Lewin at 8. I think in his favour, he's going to be back on pens probably because Richarlison's naffed off to Spurs.
Yep.
So he's going to be back on pens. But I think they're going to struggle again this year, Evan. And as good a sign as Tarkowski is, I think they are short about 5 or 6 players really for mounting another mid-table sort of top half finish. They're well down on quality players. So I think they'll struggle again, and I'll not be going anywhere near them. The sort of prices elsewhere they're initially quite appealing. You think, oh yeah, that's decent, and then really, when you get to game week 1, they're not going to be anywhere near your thoughts.
No, because you look at like Gordon 5.5, Dele Alli. You think, 5.5. Imagine 5.5 for Dele Alli like 3 or 4 years ago. It would have been unheard of. But you're still not going to risk using a midfield spot on one of those two. And like 5.5, there's some good options in the mids, like we've talked about. Neto at Wolves, he's down to 5.5. Visser at Brentford. I don't know. Gordon could be a factor because I think he had a broke into the team last year. Good young player, got set pieces. Could be an option for us, but not at the start of the season. I don't think.
No. The fixtures aren't in the first 7. I think they've got Chelsea first up for starters, and then they've got Liverpool, Arsenal in game week 6 and 7. So and then Villa will be in game week 2. So I wouldn't be touching them. Gordon, as you say, is at the moment probably the pick of that bunch. Partly because Lampard loves him. He's kind of the new Mount, isn't he? But I was just looking at his figures now when I was writing this live blog, and he made more starts than anyone under Lampard who's still there. Richarlison's obviously gone. and he was joint top 4 attacking returns outside of Richarlison. And do you know how many attacking returns he got under Lampard? 4 out of 18 appearances. So it's not great. It's good for a 4.5, but it's 5.5 million. I'll not be bothering with him, I don't think.
I bought him in, I think, before Burnley, and he got an assist. And then he scored against United, and I benched him. That was in game week 32. And then he didn't get a single attacking return from game week 32 to 38. So he was really disappointing.
He's on set plays, which is one good thing for him. But he's... I think even Everton fans were saying he's playing too much now. You know, he's a promising young winger. There was too much put on him, and by the end of the season, I think his performances were suffering. We saw him get hooked a few times. So yeah, he's a prospect, but he'll not be troubling my squad or anybody else's. I think come game week 1.
And defence, do you feel the same? I mean, we've got Coleman and Tarkowski and Mikalenko all at 4.5. I mean, Pickford's an interesting one at 4.5. He's come down quite a bit. Another 4.5 option for us to consider. Make saves. Then get to struggle. I mean, I don't mind Pickford at 4. I think it's a good price for him.
They had to do it really because at 5, nobody would have looked.
No.
5 clean sheets in, I think, 18 games under Lampard. That's not too bad. Stretched out the course of a season, that's like double figures. So that's not too bad. And we saw him go with a wing-back system towards the season's end. So his first priority was defensive security. And he saw some results. And Tarkowski's going to help with that, of course. So my probably one to watch would be Mikalenko, because he is a wing-back in that system. And we saw him getting forward a bit more. He's not Reece James by any stretch. Not even the destitute Reece James. He's probably less than that even. But he did get...
Reece James.
Yeah. I was going to say something offensive there. I'm not going to say that. He's 4.5 for a reason, but he will get forward in a wing back system more and get more goal scoring opportunities. And the hope would be that if Tarkowski's come aboard, then they might get more clean sheets as well. But there's too many ifs and hopes and maybes with Everton, I think, at the moment. For me to I feel like commit to them.
Out of everyone that we've talked about today, the only players you like are Mikalenko and like a Palace defender, and that's I don't know how you're going to build a squad when the game rolls out in the next few days.
Salah, Haaland, De Bruyne, I'm not convinced of it.
Anderson, Guay, and
I'm all about Ricardo Pereira.
And Pereira, you did like Pereira. Yep. Awesome. That's it. I think we're up to date now. We're expecting some more tomorrow. We genuinely don't know when the game is going to launch. It's got to be soon because they're going to run out of teams and prices.
Well, that's it. Forest's the last one, isn't it, tonight? Yeah. I think that's the 20 done. So
is it? Yeah,
hopefully it's tomorrow.
Yep. So hopefully it's tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, I would anticipate Wednesday. If it's not Wednesday, then something's gone really wrong, I think, and it could be a couple of days before the season starts. Who knows? We literally have no idea. But yeah, I would suggest it's going to be tomorrow or Wednesday at latest. Neale, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great. Looking forward to getting back to team news when the season starts. Thanks everyone for watching. Head over to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Have a look at Neale's articles. We've got the promoted articles that Neale put his heart and soul into, especially that Bournemouth one, as you mentioned earlier. But loads of great things going on there. We've got the transfers page. We've got loads of great stuff for anyone looking to build their teams over the next few days. So head over there, and we've also got last season's membership prices locked in just for a few more days as well. So you can get the cheaper price before it goes up. Anyway, thank you everyone, and we will